Hello everyone, my name is Mike and I am the co-founder of the Wanda Pratnicka Center. In previous episodes we have spoken a lot about the mechanics of possession and how the law of attraction works against us in case we are too deeply connected to those ones who have left to the other side, or we have not loved them truly and we have allowed that there were bonds between us and them which were unhealthy to our mental and emotional well-being and to theirs. I have explained how spirits are operating, that they are coming from a very negative level, that they can only influence and amplify our negativity and not our enthusiasm or love. I also have explained why it is so difficult to recognize possession at first, that it originates from the fact that we have also negative tendencies in our emotional body, and that then we don't really know in the beginning, is it my own anger or is it the anger of the spirit? Today I am going to talk about a very important subject, namely the relationship between a parent and a child. Sometimes we have relationships that are going beyond the death itself. A mother dies or a father dies, and then there is still a relationship. That relationship becomes from time to time a very, very deep bond. It is going on even though the parents have already gone to the other side. And so the talk today is going to be about the fact of what the root of such a problem is. That it originates from parents who raise their children rather in fear than in true heavenly love. We need to pay a close attention to the fact that giving children into this world is a way of paying our own debt. We have been born and we are also in the situation that we need to give life to other bodies that can be a home for other souls. And here we immediately see that there are two ways to raise our children. Some parents are raising their children in independence and they don't expect anything from their children in return. This, of course, requires a tremendous courage because it means that we may end up completely alone in old age. And that is how true love is working. It gives everything and it expects nothing in return. And paradoxically, when we love this way, life is taking care for us. If not through our children, then through good people who are surrounding us, by the supports of friends and other kind beings. Unfortunately, to many parents, they treat their children as their retirement insurance, which is very, very sad, but that's the reality they were raised in. They just know that scheme from their own home and they are just repeating what they received in the past. And so the very sad dynamic here is that I give you now, but you need to repay me in the future. And when fear is our motivation, then there is no love, even though it sometimes may appear as there is a lot of love that is given to the child. And so we have very often the situation that the parents are not allowing the children to grow up. If you are not allowing to grow up for your child, then it is dependent on you forever. And this is also being done by phrases like leave it alone, or you may break it, or don't touch it, you're not going to do it properly, or what have you done, stupid child? Or you may not let your children to decide on their own, like it is nonsense what you want to do. And that is what childhood should be all about. Childhood is a time for mistakes, and then kids are failing, but they are learning from the mistakes on their own, and then they are independent. Not so with the children who were raised in fear. As adults, such people are just terrified of taking their own steps because they have heard thousands of times that they are worthless or they are incapable. I have seen really successful people who are running their businesses and they are raising their own families, and they still ask their parents for permission on simple, small things. And so they can be independent in some areas of life, but as their parents' children, they remain completely dependent. From such dependency, sometimes we have situations where, for example, a father dies or leaves, and then between the mother and the son originates a very strong bond, and the mother often in such situations doesn't rebuild her life. Instead of that, she is binding it entirely to her son. And when finally the son wants to marry, the mother is opposing it very strongly. And if the couple marries anyway, she demands to move in. There are many women that are calling us with exactly this problem. They are saying during engagement we were a perfect couple, but since we are married and moved into his mother's house, my opinion doesn't count at all. Or my husband is a very loving, warm and tender person, but only when the mommy is not around. If she appears, he changes 180 degrees. So how is that all connected to spirit possession? Well, do you think that such parents will cross to the other side after their physical body is gone? Will they allow their quote-unquote little children to function independently? And even if they wanted to cross to the other side of that curtain for sure, do you think their quote-unquote poor babies would let them? These children were never taught to think in independence, and now they feel abandoned. And in such families, almost everyone is possessed by spirits. In the mother lives her father, in the grandmother her parents, and the cleansing process in such situations is a really hard undertaking, because when you clear the spirit, it immediately returns after minutes, hours, sometimes days, but it returns. Only because the person is pulling them back. And when we explain, look, this is your own mom who is just returning all the time. And they are saying, oh, this is my mom, so I don't want her spirit to be cleansed. She did so much for me, I want her to stay. And this is very, very dangerous. Sometimes people are dying from very severe illness. That illness can pass over to us if we are keeping on the bond between ourselves and the spirit. Sometimes such possessed people, they are facing death, and even though they cannot give up this attachment, The therapy in such cases can take months, years, or in some cases it can prove completely ineffective. And it has nothing to do with the exorcist itself, that the exorcist's work is too weak. It's just about the fact that there is such a strong bond between these two souls, and unfortunately sometimes only death will separate them. We have been once asked for help by a woman who wanted to help her brother who has spent over a decade in a psychiatric clinic. And before that time, he had become a PhD and he spoke 4 languages fluently. And this was originating from the fact that his mother and him, they had a very strong bond. And the mother saw nothing other than him in her life. After the cleansing process, the doctors in the clinic have immediately released him. And that was the first time in 12 years that he could just sit down with his sister and drink a coffee and have a normal conversation. That's, however, not the end of that story. The mother just kept returning, and with her return came the illness. Fortunately, he finally decided to be on his own. He finally discovered for himself that all his problems were his mother, and so the moment he took that decision, she was never allowed to return to him. And that is how people can protect themselves against spirits always. They only need to know what they are experiencing emotionally. They always need to know what they are thinking. When parents are dying, leaving small children, they very often don't go away. This is just because they are in their fear, thinking that they are the only ones who can take care for their children. They don't take into consideration that God is taking care for all His children. And if they had crossed to the light, they could just have watched over their children from there. Too often their fear just binds them. And such relationships, they just lead to very, very sad constructs. For example, the mother is not going away, is staying with the child, and in the beginning she only draws a little bit of energy from the child. But later on she needs more energy, and then she has to enter his physical body. And such a bond can blur after a time completely, and the mother forgets why she stayed. The child becomes a stranger to her, and a very sad battle for the body begins. When a parent dies, this becomes a great source of suffering for the child. Small children, they very often cannot understand why their beloved parent left them. They are searching for reasons, and most often small kids are coming up with the idea, I was naughty and that's why daddy or mommy died. And such a guilty feeling can last in the subconsciousness for the entire lifetime, unless we discover it and we heal it. In some cases, some of those children are just trying to find a way to repair such a guilt. And they are calling their parents day by day, all the time. And from such relationship, often or very often a possession occurs. What are the signs for possession in small children? Well, first of all, they feel cold all the time. They always need extra gloves. They always need additional socks, sweaters, and so on. Sometimes they have difficulty to remove their clothes in the summer. If a child is possessed by a soul who was ill during lifetime, the child may show the exact signs of such a possession. That is why there is a concept of hereditary diseases. Of course, not in all cases, but often. By that, I absolutely do not want to claim that every severe disease is passed over to the person possessed. We, as individuals, we have our own psyche, and that psyche is in most cases responsible for our illnesses. This way or the other, removing a spirit from any individual can feel very, very liberating because of the inflow of energy that belongs to us in the first place. It is so much worth working on our own psyche to protect ourselves, not to let the spirits to come in or even close. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and until next time I say bye-bye.